Good afternoon, and welcome to the Buncombe County Board of Education Special Call Meeting, Friday, April 25th, 2025. Our mission in Buncombe County Schools is to foster a culture of excellence and continuous improvement where every student will thrive and learn from exceptional educators. Our vision is for every student to graduate on time, prepared to pursue their chosen path as critical thinkers and collaborative leaders in our diverse society. With that, I will call this meeting to order. First order of business is the approval of our agenda. I will entertain a motion from the board to approve our agenda for the day.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The agenda is approved. Moving into opening comments, I just first want to express my appreciation to all of our staff and our superintendents who've put in so much time preparing all these materials for us and for taking the time to explain the way the world works to not just us, but the general public as well. It is our responsibility to make sure that we are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and that we are providing an excellent education for the students in the community. And I feel like with your support, we're doing just that. So thank you all so much for that. And I want to thank the board for all of your time. I think this is work session at least number 6 that we've had this year, and trying to understand all that's coming at us this year. And I just want to express my gratitude to our board's time. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board members, and to our staff. I just want to very, very quickly echo the remarks of our chair. I do appreciate the hard work of our staff throughout the school system and all of our buildings, our finance team, our maintenance and facilities team who've worked so hard to get the information we need so our board can make the decisions that are necessary. I also want to thank our board members. You have spent an incredible amount of time, not just in meetings, but also on phone calls and advocating with elected leaders at the local and state level, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. On behalf of our students, thank you for the time you've invested in this very important work. It's said that we can see the priorities of any organization when we look at their calendar and their checkbook. And so we certainly recognize how important the decisions that will be made around our budget are in terms of putting to life, walking the talk of our core values. And I've seen that in your work and in your conversation and the work of our staff. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Jackson. With that, I will hand it over to Tina Thorpe, our Chief Financial Officer, and Clark Wyatt, Director of Facilities and Maintenance, for presentations regarding operations and capital outlay in facilities. You have the floor, Ms. Thorpe.
Good afternoon, Chairman Elliott, members of the board, and Dr. Jackson. It's my pleasure today to review the operational budget request for 25-26 as our first presentation. Thank you. So as for our presentation overview today, we're going to talk about the 25-26 annual planning and budget development overview. And you all have mentioned this is our 6th budget work session that we've been working through different scenarios of trying to figure out the 25-26 budget. We're going to talk about our current landscape, and then we're going to talk about our budget challenges that lie ahead, and the 25-26 budget recommendation at the very final slide. As I've mentioned many times, we are always in finance working through usually 3 years at a time. We just finished in December in finalizing our 23-24 budget and the final audit and all the financial statements for that. And then we start in February every year working on the upcoming year, and we are constantly working through the current budget of trying to make sure that we finalize everything and maximize the state and federal dollars as we move through every single payroll and every single line item, making sure that we're maximizing all of those funds. This is a quick timeline of each budget cycle. October through January We're doing all the analysis, we're doing budget requests to mid to late January. We're analyzing the budget. February to April, we're really digging into what the state may be thinking for a state budget and also what the local and federal dollars are looking like, if there's any news out from the federal government and the local government. So we work with all of those trying to figure out what the revenues will be coming in for the upcoming year. We usually, and this year it is today, April 25th, will be our superintendent's budget proposal presented to the Board of Education. And then we must present by May 15th to the county commissioners our budget request for local appropriations. They will be voting June 6th this year instead of, in the past, it had been about 2 weeks after that. So they're going to be doing that on June 6th. We will have a June 30th special called work session to finalize the year-end numbers and to get the last budget amendment done at that point in time for the year. And then we start again July 1, July through September. We start usually with an interim budget in Buncombe County so that we can keep operations going until a state budget is passed. Just remember, we are in the long session and we don't know when that state budget will come out this year. So we are expecting a long delay before we get that. So the current landscape, we've been tracking since 2013-14, because that's when legislation really changed around charter schools, what has happened with our ADM. And also you can see when COVID hit what happened to the ADM, that we've not been able to get back up to where we were prior to the charter school laws changing and the COVID hitting, the pandemic hitting during that March 2020 year. So the good news is we have stayed relatively pretty flat and not lost a lot since 21-22, and that's a positive, so that we didn't continue losing at the rate we were. We are trying really hard marketing and showing all the wonderful aspects that Buncombe County Schools has to offer our students, and so we'll keep striving to increase our ADM. And then you can see the dollar amount that we have been transferring based on state law from the local dollars that we receive that we have to send to the charter schools. This is updated based on our December head count for our exceptional children and our current head count for our multilingual learners. So we are sitting at 12.7% of our total population as exceptional children as of the December 1st, 2024 head count. And that's the number they use to base our allotments on. And then the multilingual learners were sitting at 13.6% of our total population. Now, I did not separate out some of the multilingual REC. I did not separate those out. So I've also put a graph in there that shows you that we are at 3,010 multilingual learners, and you can see that progression of the percentage increase is a little over 60% increase since 21-22.
Sorry, Tina, can I ask a question? So do we have a breakdown here of the schools, or I know there is a chart somewhere of, because that's a huge number that's different now with our ML students. I assume that we have all that by school, right?
We have it by school, by grade, but I don't have it today.
That's okay, that's all
Yes.
right.
Oh, yes,
But I'm sure that if we needed it, we've got that.
yes.
That's a huge increase,
Mm-hmm.
1,800 to 3,000, that's a lot.
Correct. We're going to dive into budget challenges that we're facing within Buncombe County Schools. The $3.9 million reduction mid-year for 24-25 had never happened before, and trying to figure out the dynamics around that and moving forward into the 25-26 year. Also, looking at the reduced local county appropriation base starting point for 25-26. That also has never been the situation. Based on state legislation, we are given the following year the amount that was appropriated and budgeted the previous year. Article 39 is new as well. This year is another budget challenge that we're trying to work through, the facility needs and replacement schedules. And you're going to see in our next presentation around the capital needs and Article 39 along with our 4042 capital funds. The salary and benefit rate increases, we don't know those currently. We've looked at the governor's proposed budget. We've looked at the Senate proposed budget. We've looked at historical experience of raises and retirement increases and health insurance increases, and we have come up with a set of numbers that I'm going to go over in just a minute that review our assumptions and how we built this budget. The utilities and insurance rate increases have been astronomical. The insurance rates from 21 to last year was over 178% increase on property insurance, and you can just imagine what I'm dealing with right now, working on property insurance renewals. I've got all of our property and all of our insurance packages out right now, and they are being bid on by different insurance companies. So we are trying to get information, but we have been notified that more than likely our deductible rates are going to drastically change, and the process of how they work are going to change. So trying to work through all of that is a huge challenge. The inflation and the tariff impact on services and supplies cost. Inflation has been huge. It's usually about 3 times of everything that we used to pay about before the pandemic hit. Following the pandemic, it's about 3 times what we paid at that point in time. And so for our services and our supplies, the tariff is unknown at this time, but we always have a lot of capital needs and capital projects going on, and those tariffs will impact our ability of how far our dollar will go on completing a lot of those capital projects, along with supplies that are coming in from other countries that we use. So we don't know the impact yet on how the tariffs will change the amount of expenditures we're having for an item. The positions cost related to the enrollment growth or decline, that is a percentage. It can happen between, depending on what type of enrollment we have with the MLs and the EC, along with the types of positions that we need to cover those situations. We could have an increase related to position cost associated with meeting the needs of our students. Also, it means the percent change that can happen between us and Asheville City, between the charter schools, and it always changes our calculation once we get the best one of 2 in December, or October is when we get it, and then it's usually adjusted by December. So once we go to the facilities report, we will show you the breakdown in there around the split between us and Nashville City Schools and the percentages of charter students that are leaving us and leaving Asheville City. Those are all in there. And then the state budget, as I said earlier, is in long sessions, and we just don't know what the legislative changes are going to be and how they're going to impact us, and if there's going to be unfunded mandates in there, because usually there's something that local ends up having to pick up, because it happens after we've already got hiring in place, and so we just don't know what's coming from that. And we still don't know the state, federal, and local initial allotments. We did receive state planning allotments. Those were different than what I was expecting because our ADM only went down 14 students, our best one of 2. It was 22,066 to 22,052. I was expecting, especially since we're now funding in arrears, that our planning allotments would come in relatively similar, and they're a little different. So we had a meeting last week with DPI Finance, School Business Finance, and the majority of the reason was that they had to change their initial allotments based on the number of charter students that are going to charter students across the state, and the exact wording was, we had to put more in reserve up front and lower the base for public schools in order to cover the charter schools. Normally, we get our reduction to charter schools in December, based on the best one of two number. Once it's trued up, we're adjusted usually in December. And the overarching budget challenges, which drive all of this for the local school boards, is we cannot levy taxes in North Carolina. We are not able to issue debt in North Carolina. Local budget always is adopted before the state budget passes. Hiring has always taken place before the state budget passes. And the state often mandates those additional expenses while not funding them. And the majority of state and federal funding is based on average daily membership of students and not the need-based or the weighted formula of students. Here's a snapshot of our revenue analysis as of March 31st, 2025. The state covers 56% of our expenditures. Local is covering 33%. Federal is covering 8%. Federal is back down to 8% this year. If you go back the last 3 years, I had a note on here, it was being skewed by the ESSER dollars or COVID dollars. And we ended all of those September 30th and had them all spent out that we could spend out. So it's barely inflated a little bit for the small amount that we still had remaining that we spent by September 30th, 24. And then other specific revenues, most of those are grants that we have, is 3%. Where does our operating budget go each year? We have currently, as of March 31st, 84% of all of our expenditure covers salary and benefits for our staffing. So it's in human capital to meet the needs of our students. And then we have 16% that's in other, outside of salary and benefits.
Can you give an example of
Yes. So we have custodial supplies. We have anything for maintenance that we have to upkeep, not capital, but supplies that we have to. So anything that we purchase outside of a salary, contracted services are in there, and contracted services are up. Utilities are in there.
Okay.
Those are up. Insurance is in there. So the overhead, what it takes to keep our buildings going.
Thank you.
Locally funded personnel, and this is a snapshot. Please keep this in mind. This is our March 31st payroll. We currently have these positions supported 100% from local dollars. Those, you will see there are several certified positions in there, and it is very crucial to note that we've said this many years, the state and federal dollars do not cover the needs of our students. To be able to have those certified teachers in the right class size, the right average, depending on their needs. So you can see the differences here, that what it takes for counselors and social workers, the state does not cover enough for the needs of our students. So the 25-26 operational budget recommendation is truly based on the needs to provide continued services at the rate we're currently sitting at, that we have worked very hard. I would like to point out, before I go into this, I would like to point out from this slide right here. The highest point that we reached was 745 locally funded personnel. Last year, we had gotten down to 636, I believe it was, if you go back and look at the presentation. But I had a note on there. It clearly stated that at that point, we would have had to put 87 positions back into locally funded personnel. We worked very hard in July and August before school started, using attrition to help us not put as many locally funded back in and right a line based on the drop of ADM. So we have been working since 22 really, really hard at right aligning, I'll say 21-22 budget year, because that's when I came into this role. We have been working really, really hard to right align and to adjust our locally funded personnel as much as possible while still meeting the needs of the students. So our proposed salary and benefits for 25-26, this is based on the budget assumptions that I have below, and I'm going to go over those. So the total proposed increase to the local salary and benefits would be $4.2 million. Those are based on a certified staff increase of 3%, but with the step in that built in, it equates to 4.13%. The non-certified classified staff, it would provide a 2% plus the step. So 2% plus the step equals a 3% increase. The retirement rate, we're keeping flat at a 2502 projection. We're currently at a 24.04, but year before last, we were at 2502, and I'm assuming that they will go back to the 2502 employer portion that we have to pay on retirement. The hospitalization rate is, we're using 8,340. Based on the Senate, that proposed budget that's out there, our retirement rate's a little bit higher than what the Senate has proposed, but our hospitalization rate is lower. So I'm thinking that now I'm still feeling comfortable that we're going to hit almost break even with that, as long as the percentages of the state for classified and certified don't go crazy. But if those change drastically from what we have projected, we will need to revisit this category. The other piece that is very important, the other that we were talking about a minute ago, will increase about $2 million. The property insurance alone will be $1 million of that we're going to have to have based on the fact that depending on where the deductibles come in, if there were to be an emergency like we had in September. So we also use the following utility cost increases. Electricity is 8.5%. We've done research on that. Gas 3%, water 10%. You can see that in your own electric bills and everything, what happened after the hurricane. Locally, there's price increases that have happened. And the unknown factor that we tried to build in was the inflation and the tariff impact, increased cost to contract services, supplies to maintain those facilities at a 3% build-in is what we built in there. So that equated to $2 million increase. The other piece of this is to maintain all current services where we sit, we need $4.1 million. So the total requested increase is $10,315,520. Here's a summary of the number. Our base, based on what the county has told us, would start at $95,564 if passed by commissioners. Then the projected expenses are $105 million, right at $106 million. That's the difference of the 10.3 that we need. So the total dollars requested from local is $105,880,424 to meet our needs as much as we worked on right aligning. This would meet the needs of our students and our immutable cost. Are there?
Can you stress, and this is what I would love for people to understand, and especially the public, and when you're looking at a budget, we were operating spent, well, I tell people, operations is a take society when it comes down to any business that is running. And what I want to stress to people, when you look at property insurance, that is raising up 178%. And it's just not Buncombe County that's experiencing this, it's across America that is experiencing inflation in insurance policies. And I think our communities understand we're not asking for money for the benefit of having money. We asking for money because we know what it's going to take to maintain it. And I think we need to highlight these areas where we see the increase coming in, because it's not because of us, it's because the economy is changing. When we look at a roof 8 years ago, that probably cost Clark probably $1 million. Today it's going to cost $3 million. And it's the same material, but cost has risen in the housing market and in the business market. So I would say stress these things to people, because 170% is a lot, because I know my insurance went up. Insurance can't do anything about it because we are paying for what Mother Nature is doing to us. Hurricanes and storms and fires are coming. So we need to stress that to people. We're not asking money just to have it. We're asking money because we know we have to need it to run the business.
Other board members have questions for Ms. Thorpe? Greg? Mr. Cheatham?
I do. Tina, could you speak a little bit about the history of the revenue as provided by the state? We're at 56% now. Do you know offhand what that percentage was last year and maybe 5 years ago?
It has stayed relatively very similar the last 5 years from the state based on the ADM and the increases that they gave did not cover the increases. Let me make sure this makes sense, because they gave raises each year, the last 5 years. But our allotment actually declined in some categories. Overall, it stayed about the same dollar amount in positions, except for some decline in categories, months of employment, and positions, even though the cost that they approved kept increasing. So we have not seen a match come in based on the increases that they approved at the legislation for that to cover it. So that makes the percentage off, which causes us to dip more into local dollars every single time a state budget is passed and the planning allotments change, the initial allotments change, the formula changes. We're not getting the amount to cover that.
Am I correct that that number used to be in the mid-60s or high 60s, the percentage of funds state funded?
It used to be around 63, 64%.
Okay.
A few years back.
So that wouldn't be completely based on ADM.
Can you say that again?
So the decrease in that percentage, though, wouldn't be completely
No,
because our numbers have dropped.
it would not be complete because of
It's
ADM.
decreased because we've been funded
Right.
less from the state.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the state's not covering nearly as much as they used to cover.
Thank you.
Other board members, questions for Ms. Thorpe?
I got something else too.
All right, Mr. Mark.
I do too.
And probably Dr. Jackson can answer this for, because this is the highlight that I'm hearing from the public about, because our ADMs are dropping, why aren't we merging schools, and our schools are pretty much at capacity still, even though our school buildings are older. Maybe you can touch on that for the public to understand that people think we should consolidate schools, but technically we cannot consolidate schools because they are at the level where they need to be at to function, even though enrollment is dropping.
Thank you, Reverend Martin. To kind of clarify, consolidate schools like consolidate schools within Buncombe County schools.
Within Buncombe County.
Right. Thank you for that question. In the consolidation study that was looking at the question of consolidating school systems, which is a different conversation, they mentioned the possibility of potentially consolidating some of the schools. In that consolidation study, however, They did not look at all of the factors that a Board of Education would have to consider. For example, geography. They mentioned the possibility of closing one of our elementary schools that's geographically isolated from the rest of the county, which would cause a dramatic increase in the amount of time that our students would be on the bus to travel. One of the solutions they proposed was building a new school building next to North Buncombe Elementary School to be an elementary school, to be able to close a school. And so closing, under that suggestion, closing one school to save money would actually cost the school system an estimated $45 million to build a new elementary school. So there's not really a cost savings there. Another school that they mentioned as a possibility for merging between two elementary schools, they didn't look at the makeup of the school. The particular school they named, it has over 50% of the school is an ML population, and so you have a vulnerable student population in terms of they come to school not yet having mastered the English language, some of them not speaking English, and so when we put students in a larger school, it becomes more difficult to meet their individual needs, and so there's an academic cost to merging the schools. Finally, there's not always a financial cost or savings to putting two schools together. One of the quick things that folks who may not understand school financing might say was if you had one school instead of two schools, you could save the principal's salary. Well, the principal's salary is actually taken care of by the state and not locally, and so that wouldn't actually be a savings to our local budget. And so part of this annual meeting, and one of the things I'm so very proud of our school system, is the work we do to future plan to understand our needs ongoing. And so in a presentation in just a little bit, we're going to talk about the capacity of our schools. And our Board of Education looks at that every single April. It's an ongoing investigation of where we are with building capacity. And so it's not a new idea to Buncombe County Schools. I believe in terms of our facilities, we are right-sized. We have the right number of buildings. We've got our students where they need to be successful, and we're seeing that academically. And so I very much appreciate that question, particularly because that was highlighted in the consolidation study. We're certainly willing to continue, and we'll be doing that today, to look at any opportunity to save funds, to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources. Ms. Thorpe mentioned in her presentation that we are currently working through insurance providers to find the very best savings we can in insurance while ensuring that we're protecting the millions and millions of dollars that our buildings are worth by having the insurance we need in case we have something that may happen like happened this year. Thank you very much for the question, Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Ms. Clemens?
So first of all, Dr. Jackson, thank you. That was a really good explanation, because it's not as easy as it seems to do those kind of things. So thank you for that. Tina, I want to go back to the slide where you talked about the allotments that you've seen from the state level, and the fact that we've only lost 14 students total based on our ADM from last year. That's what you said, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So what exactly is the state allotment stating? And let me tell you what I'm thinking. Are they thinking about increasing the size of class students, the number of students in a class? I mean, how would they come up with something different with our numbers being so similar from last year? Does that make sense?
Yes. So they're not looking at changing class size averages. What they did was they took the overall state enrollments into charter schools and how much, and you're going to see that in the facility report later today, how much they've increased across this whole state. And so they didn't have enough money set aside to cover those students from the state dollars, because remember, the state dollars are trued up in December, but they pay them directly from the state to the charters, not like local. Local
Okay.
comes through us and then we send it. So they did not have enough dollars set aside based on what they pay per student for the number of students that have now increased in charter schools. So they're reducing the starting point, the base starting point for LEAs or PSUs to be able to do the math in order to have the dollars set aside for reserve for the charter school increases.
And what does PSU stand for?
Public school unit.
That's what I thought, okay.
They're switching away, so everybody knows.
From LEAs.
It used to be called LEA always, and now a lot of the charter schools are public school units. They're part of the public schools that get these dollars, so they have switched the terminology from LEA to PSU.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board member questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
did you have a question? I just wanted to sum this up, but
I had one,
yes,
if you don't mind. Ms. Thorpe, could you, hopefully, I think this is a brief question for you, but on the classified staff study, do you mind just sharing the story of the classified staff study that was done and how that was agreed upon by the county and where we are in that
Yes.
process?
Yes. So we did a study, and we had a third party come in. It was HIL come in and do the third party study of our classified pay scales, their jobs, and they compared it across the whole state, and they compared it to other industries. And they came back with a recommendation, and they put that into place in the board meeting. They presented here in May of 22, I believe. Yes, and so they presented, and we took that to the county and asked for the increase that it would take to cover that. We had the total dollar amount of what it would take to cover the new pay tables and the new scale, to get rid of compressions. And if you remember, our staff did not receive a pay increase from year 0 to 15 on the pay scales. They were like frozen in time. They were honestly making like $12 an hour. It was horrific. And so they had gone through that, and when we went to the county, they initially said that we will do it in 3 phases, 3 years. And so we broke it down, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in our numbers. We immediately, when they gave us the first increase, we immediately put that in place on the pay scales, and the classified staff saw on average around 10% increase on the phase 1. Then when and that was an average. Then when the next year rolls around, we start meeting and talking about it, and Ms. Pender and the commissioners wanted to go ahead and do phase 2 and 3 together. Don't spread it out over 3 years. They wanted to go ahead and get 2 and 3 taken care of. And that was the year that the state budget didn't pass on early. And so they gave us a portion of that up front. We went ahead and built our salary schedules, got everything in place with phase 2 and 3 put together. All of our employees received the full implementation in year 2, even though it was supposed to take 3 years. And that ended up being an average of 17% increase for an average for our classified staff. All of that was done on time, and as they had asked us to do and approved to do, we didn't miss a beat, and we implemented. Then we came back to the October, because the state budget had passed, like I think October 4th, and we had a meeting in October with the county commissioners because we didn't know what the state was going to do with the budget increases and what that was going to impact our numbers. So we did our numbers, and we met in October, and if you go back and watch that, Mr. Newman, Brownie Newman, the chair, was going through all of that, and he felt very compassionate in the need to also do something for the certified, and he approved, the county commissioners, along with his, you can listen to the presentation, his commentary, they voted to give the certified a 2% increase in the October meeting. We immediately took that right then. By the October payroll, we had our certified retroed back to July, because it started July, and they all bumped the 2% based on where they were on our, it's percent by years. So by the October 31st check, I think, I won't say 31st, the last October check, because that year, I'm not sure if 31st fell on a weekend or not. But by the October check, all certified staff had their retro pay and had their bump, and then it carried forward. We didn't delay in implementing exactly what the money was given for in that year. So the money was given for those pay increases, and we took advantage of that to help our classified staff and certified.
Thank you very much for that. And so just to be clear, like the implementation of the classified study results, that's complete. And so we've moved those schedules into place, and from here on out, we are, you'll be following step increases plus some percentage or whatever. But like we implemented the study completely over the time, early actually.
Yes, and
Okay.
I want to make sure you all are, I want the public to be clear, and you all to be clear about this. That was a third-party study. That was not the BCAE request. If you all remember, you were on the board. I did an analysis of their request at that time. It was like 50-some million annually, because it was like a 7% to all local and certified, to local supplement for all classified and certified, plus starting at $21 and something, then spread, and they had their own chart that they wanted spread, and all the steps. We did not implement that. We couldn't afford that. And you all did not vote on that, and neither did the county vote on that. We did a very nice increase based on the outside third-party salary study.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, any other
One more
questions?
thing.
Yes.
And Tina, can we clarify that those funds that were used to give the increases did not go to any state, local positions inside of Buncombe County? We use it for the purpose what the county says we're supposed to use it for.
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Tina has done a wonderful job sharing with you the superintendent's budget proposal on time, as you would expect. And so next week at the board's monthly meeting, you'll have the opportunity to consider the budget proposal and make a decision on that. As we move into our next item, I just want to, as an overview to the superintendent's budget proposal, share with you that I would classify this as a maintenance budget. It's not an expansion budget, although there's an increase that's being asked for. The increase is simply to maintain the services we currently have. We recognize and understand that our students, our staff, and our families have gone through much, and they are in a vulnerable place, and so I believe it is absolutely crucial that we maintain the services that we provide to our students and our families, that we continue to support our staff members, and that's what this budget proposal from the superintendent does. It's a maintenance budget. There is an increase associated, but the increase is simply to cover the costs associated with the immutable cost increases like insurance, et cetera, and to cover those salary increases and benefits increases that will be approved by the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. This time we'll, Mr. Clark Wyatt, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Good afternoon, I guess. It's Mr. Chair, members of the board,
It's Friday.
Dr. Jackson. Time just runs together now. I'm going to go over our proposed capital outlay budget. Throughout this discussion, I'll talk about different budget, give you a snapshot of the county, our needs, the different budgets we use to help address our capital needs. And feel free to ask any questions as we move along. So this is just a snapshot of the county. A lot of people don't realize how big Buncombe County really is. We're the 15th largest system in the state. We have 45 school campuses. We maintain over 1,300 acres of property, over 200 acres of parking lots, and then our, not going to go over everything, but our roofs, over 102 acres of roof. It's hard to wrap your brain around sometimes. Did I hit some button wrong? Let's see here. Is that me? I'll keep going. Our next, I think y'all have this presentation in front of you. The average age of our facilities is 50 years old. We have an aging infrastructure. And what is infrastructure? Infrastructure is a collection of systems that allow our buildings to function, such as roofing, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, technology, life safety, accessibility, etc. These are the parts of the building that most people don't see. They're hidden, they're under the ground, they're on top of the roof, they're in back rooms, in basement areas that are the lifeline of our facilities. Again, we have 4.5 million square feet of brick and mortar space and 100 mobile classrooms. Our infrastructure assessments on an annual basis, and this is actually a continual basis, we are continually analyzing the condition of our facilities. We have internal and external assessments. Our internal assessments include our stakeholder input. We allow our schools to submit their capital requests, and we'll talk about that timeline in just a minute. They utilize their parent-teacher organizations, their school improvement teams, their community input, their staff input. We use our staff at the Maintenance and Facilities Department to analyze our facilities. We use the input from myself and Robert Frisbee, the Director of Technology, to look at the future, look at the laws, look at how our buildings are and what we need to do to be able to maintain. We also use third-party entities. We use engineers, professionals in different fields such as safety and security, and designers, architects, to help us come up with assessments of our roofing systems, our buildings, and any other need that we feel necessary. So our budgetary needs this year, and this is our total capital needs. So we utilize many sources to address our capital needs. If you add all those together, our total capital needs for this year is over $450 million. These are immediate needs. These are needs that we've identified that, these items need to be addressed in our schools. And this is looking at our 4042 budget, our Article 39, priority one list. We very seldom have, or not very seldom, we never have enough money to cover our needs. That's why we have to utilize a committee, and we utilize expertise, and we have to make tough decisions every year on what we are deciding to fund. Deferring maintenance obviously leads to exponential cost. The longer you let things go, the more things cost, just because of things like inflation or tariffs, or just everything gets more expensive as time gets along. Also, there's potential to lead into unsafe buildings if we don't keep up with our most important facility needs like roofs and infrastructure. I think most of you have seen this chart. Reiterating back to what Dr. Jackson was talking about, maintaining a maintenance budget, or just a maintenance budget. For us just to maintain our infrastructure, if we do nothing extra, we need to spend almost $27 million a year to maintain the things in our buildings that most people don't see. So the list there, it's just a simple math project. We have so many items or, square footage wise or a specific count of an item and an average cost to replace it, and you do the simple math using its life expectancy, and that's where we come up with that number of 27 million. So we'll go into detail on our 4042 capital outlay process. This year, big thanks to our committee members. As you can see, this is Ms. Kelly Owens from Black Mountain, Travis Collins from Irwin Middle, Doris Sellers from North Windy Ridge, Nathan Allison from TC, myself, Ron Griffin, Beth Anderson, Sam Interlicia, Robert Frisbee, Tina Thorpe, and Tina Jones, and Amanda Buckner. Thanks to all of them for helping us through this. It's a lengthy process, going through the book that you have in front of you line by line and discussing each project. Took several days and lots of questions. And the timeline for this process starts in October of 24, actually. So right after we're in the middle of dealing with Hurricane Helene, we send out a spreadsheet to all of our schools and allow them to request any need that they foresee for their schools. They get that ability until right before the Thanksgiving break. And then at that time, we start working on costing out all the jobs. So our teams, the technology teams, the maintenance facilities teams, look at each project and determine what it would cost to do what is requested. We work on that process through the month of February and then start our meetings in the month of March. We have several meetings during March, and ultimately it comes to this book that you see in front of you and comes to you for your approval. As you know, we have several funding sources that we utilize to take care of our capital needs. We have Article 39, which is typically about 50% of the funds we use to keep up with our capital funding needs. Article 4042 takes care of about 50%. And then lottery is a supplemental. That's things that are specialized that really we kind of hold and make sure that after we finalize the 4042 and the 39 budget that we make sure that all of our needs are covered. I do want to point out that Article 39, the projects must be at least $100,000 and before we can utilize it per project. And so as you all know, we're still trying to figure out exactly where that source is going. So our capital 4042 request, again, this is this book you have in front of you, the bound book that goes broken down per each school. This year, looking at our forecasted revenue, and this forecast number comes from the county, it's a little over $17.5 million, and that is a projection, so sometimes that number changes. Typically doesn't go up, it goes down, but that's the number that we budgeted to this year and brought out to you in this book. This year our request totaled over $322 million. Last year the dollar number of requests was $264 million. You know, talking about things getting more expensive, every year it gets just exponentially more expensive. And those kind of show you what those numbers look like. In the book that you have, this is a breakdown of kind of how the committee allocated the funding, broken down by category. So it's looking at the whole picture of what was funded and how it was broken down. This chart shows you the number of requests. The top one is the number of requests in dollars versus the number funded. So the number of requests, again, was a little over 323 million, almost 323 million, and we funded about 17.7 million. The bottom chart, we had 1,064 requests, and we were able to fund 119 of them. So as you can see over time, I think the most interesting thing is the chart of the cost above, is how expensive things are getting. the number of requests or the amount we fund kind of is fairly level because it's a pretty consistent budget amount we get, but that's how much things cost now. Some things to think about too is talking about not being able to keep up. So right now in this budget in front of you, some identified roofing needs that we were not able to fund. The unbudgeted immediate needs total over 11 million. And then in the next category, which is called future considerations, almost 8.5 million. So total of almost 19.5 million, a little over $19.5 million worth of roofing that we're not able to fund in this budget that are either immediate needs or will be immediate needs in the very near future. Same thing with electrical and flooring. You can see how there's plenty of needs out there, and those are just kind of some specific examples of some specific roofing, electrical, and flooring. There's plenty more where that came from. The next funding source we'll talk about are our Article 39, our long-range planning. The way we're currently doing this, we are phasing our projects. We've been doing that for many years since they've switched the funding model for our Article 39 process to where we have the Article 39 or the Capital Fund Commission. So we get into projects that this budget doesn't have enough money to totally fund some of these large projects, so we will plan on doing, several years worth of work. One good example are our lobbies, our lobby security upfits. All of y'all have experienced those. We're trying to do several a year, have many more to go. Our technology upgrades. As you know, technology continues to change all the time, and keeping up with the needs in our technology world or a continued phased approach. Our roofing, you'll see us some photos here in a minute, and it brings to light, it's a good visual example of phasing projects. Along with all of these other items you see here, everything we do, we try to phase and spread our money across the county and really address just the most immediate needs at each campus. Our security we've been working on, each of y'all are aware of this. We're doing intrusion prevention, our perimeter securities, access control, and our front office visitor vetting processes at each campus. This is our prototype design that you're seeing. So they have 3 levels of security to be able to vet visitors prior to letting them into the common space of a building. Not unsecure space, but into the general area of the building. So I think each of y'all have seen this prototype design. I'm going to update you on a couple of our projects these are our front office projects that we're working on right now. T.C. Robertson, it is moving right along. It's getting close to being able to utilize here shortly, and it's going to make a huge difference to that campus. North Buncombe Elementary has been used since, or for some time now, this school year. We still have some items we need to finish out at this campus once school is out, but it is working nicely. The school and staff and community members are happy to have it, as well as the next school here at West Buncombe. North Buncombe and West Buncombe are kind of similar construction types, but that front office lobby project is doing well, and we again have some things to finish out there as soon as school's out. If you've been to the Reynolds campus lately, you've seen the almost completed guardhouse. Some items were completed over spring break that will allow us to put the final touches on it. So it is moving along well, and the beauty of this particular guardhouse, it will actually secure 2 campuses, a high and a middle school. So hopefully we'll have this operational really soon. Some of the other projects that we are using our Article 39 funds for is our progressive education program at Estes. We made an addition there, added a classroom, and worked on their front office as well. They are actually using a portion of this right now. And the remainder of this work will happen after school is let out this summer. Right here at in this building, we were able to do the construction on the music classrooms right down the hall. If you've ever been in a building that doesn't have a proper construction around a music classroom, everyone gets to enjoy the music. But I think after this, this little project here, it's been really nice because it keeps the sound inside that room, and I've heard nothing but good things about this room. Another project where we're using our Article 39 funds are to update the stadium lighting at Irvin High. This project is basically completed. We're going to do some more work out here at this campus after the school's let out as well. I don't know if you've been to Avers Creek Elementary and noticed our new queuing drive. It is complete except for some additional work we're going to do this summer. Nothing but good to hear from this is how we've helped the traffic on 191 and the surrounding areas. It's created a safer place and a safer way for children to get dropped off and picked up from school. We're getting ready to start 2 additional queuing drives, one at Irwin Middle and one at North Buncombe Elementary, using these same Article 39 funds. Our energy management systems, are the systems that allow our HVAC systems to operate properly and to be controlled from a central plant here at our office, and we are able to manage energy. You can see 2 of the projects that were recently worked on is Cane Creek and Weaverville Elementary, and both of those are pretty much fully operational. Our solar projects at our schools are all operational now, and things are going well with the solar systems, and hearing nothing but good words about those. Another item that we're using that you really don't see, these items are hidden, that are our network connectivity, our servers, our wireless systems, our cameras, all the cabling that goes above the ceiling to keep all those operational, our building intercom and bell systems and outdoor speakers are another project that we're using our Article 39 to keep our technology systems rolling. Roofing is a huge need and a huge where we use our Article 39. If you look at the top picture in the left, that's T.C. Robertson High School. And if you notice all of the different colors, those are how we phased our roof systems with the amount of money we have. We have over 1,100 roof areas in Buncombe County. So we address the most crucial roof areas and re-roof as we receive funding. The photo on the bottom right is Sand Hill Venable Elementary, and you see how we've used every dollar we had to roof exactly how much money we had, and that's a good phased approach. That particular roof, we had to create another roof area in order to phase and use the money. We created our own roof area to be able to keep the project going. Following list would be our priority 1 request that we have submitted for this year's Article 39 projects. W.D. Williams is, again, an open concept school that was built back in the 70s when we didn't have many walls. We, as a system, have added walls since the building was built, and our HVAC systems in this building are failing, and we also have some code-related issues that we are needing to correct. And the reason you see a W.D. Williams Phase 2 or Phase 2B or Phase 3 is the amount of money we get from Article 39 for this project will depend on how far along we can go, how many phases it ends up having to be. So we have that on several. You can see the roof. This equipment is 1996 era. So it's amazing that this equipment's still running. This is the mechanical equipment on the roof at W.D. Williams. Our second priority is our lobby security upfits. We saw this earlier, and we have Typically, we are doing 3 security upfits per year, and we don't typically name the schools where we're going to do those, but that's the funding request would get 3 additional schools going for the lobby security upfits. Our technology infrastructure, we talked about that a little earlier. It's again a phase project that continues going, and there's a continued need for that. So our priority number 3 would be our technology infrastructure upgrade needs. Again, we have what we truly need, and then we have a phase number due to the fact that we're unsure of how the funding's going to play out this year. North Buncombe High School, we are in the middle of a phase mechanical system upgrade here. And again, you'll see a phase 2B or a phase 3, depending on how much funding we get to be able to upgrade this mechanical system that's in dire need of upgrading. This is an air handler at North Buncombe High School that shows the age of the equipment. Fire alarm systems, that's one of our priorities in this Article 39 budget. This is just showing a recently installed one for a photo, but it's the request is for the fire alarm system at Hominy Valley Elementary. Another request you'll see in there is our tennis court upgrades, or not upgrades, but replacement. This is the tennis courts at T.C. Robertson High School. This year, the TC's not being able to play on 3 of their courts because of the condition, and they are actually playing or having their matches at Cane Creek due to the condition of these courts. And as you can tell by the size of these cracks, this is not a simple repair job. The subsurface is moving underneath these courts, and it's going to have to be totally torn out and replaced. Valley Springs Middle School. Most of you know that for years the city of Asheville leased the fields in front of Valley Springs for over 30 years. Well, last year they decided they didn't want to lease the fields anymore, and it gave us an opportunity to go to the Article 39 committee and come up with a plan to build athletic fields and courts for Valley Springs. Currently, Valley Springs has to share the fields at T.C. Robertson, their soccer football field and their tennis courts. They do have a baseball and softball field on site, but don't have the other fields. So it creates a problem of them having to drive across the road and haul their students to the other campus to be able to have their sporting events and practices on a daily basis. This project was partially funded last year, and we're hoping to get the remainder of the funds this year so we can keep the project moving. The photo you see here is of Glen Arden Elementary. I took this photo myself, the larger photo on the right, and what you're seeing there is 3 classrooms. I'm standing in the doorway of one of the classrooms, and you see 2 additional classrooms in the photo. This again is an open concept building. Standing there taking this photo, you can hear all of the conversations going on in all 3 classrooms. This building actually was slated to be renovated in a similar fashion of Hall Creek, renovated or replaced. And then when W.D. Williams, we understood that we had some code issues that we had to address. We had to change and push this building renovations or replacement back and put W.D. Williams in front of it. So that's why they switched places. Our request this year for Article 39 money is to get a good start to design this building. We had a advanced planning study done about 2 or 3 years ago by an architectural firm, and they evaluated the cost to renovate versus to replace this building, and they are basically identical. So I feel like it would be my opinion to replace this building due to the fact of these long-term renovation projects really interrupt the school. Hall Creek suffered a lot during that renovation. It's not, construction and education don't go good together. And We have plenty of property at Glenarden to be able to build a new building. So our request for the Article 39 budget this year would to be able to hire a design team to get started on the design and come up with some really good numbers so we can understand the exact cost to replace this building that is in definitely dire need of replacement. Here's a list of our spreadsheet format of our request. If you see the column on the left of the dollars, that's the actual amount of money we need to complete each one of these projects. But we did ask our Article 39 budget committee to allow us to have a phased column. So the phase number is what we're asking for this year. But I do want to bring to light, to do these 21 projects, that total number at the bottom, 132 million, is what it would cost to fully complete these projects. But this year we are asking for almost $26 million in the column, on the phase column, to keep this phased approach going and keep it moving like we have done in the past. This next slide, which gets even smaller and harder to see, but this is our priority 2 requests. So you can see there's almost 100 requests here, totaling almost $200 million worth of work. So these are items, these are additional roof issues, these are mechanical issues, technology issues that need to be addressed throughout our system. Going back to earlier in our conversation where we're always looking at our systems, this is a 5-year look at our systems and the cost of what it will take to maintain our facilities moving forward in the next 5 years. And then this chart shows a 15-year look at what it costs to maintain our buildings. And these charts only show maintaining what we have. It does not account for any additional things like major school renovations or even front office reconfigurations. This is just maintaining what we have. Another nice little added funding source we have is our school community impact funding. This funding is given to us through the county, and it is to address areas that basically where the community is allowed to or will benefit from these projects as well as the school system. A lot of these have been playgrounds, and there's one item at Cane Creek, which is in their auditorium, their projector screen was part of this funding. But our playgrounds at these schools at Estes, we have Estes, I was waiting to see this pop back up. Woodfin was one of the playgrounds that was funded by this. Hall Creek, some playgrounds at Hall Creek were funded by this amount of money or with these funds. And then Black Mountain Elementary are some projects that use with this fund.
Just to be clear, when you say community impact, these were donations from folks in the community?
No, this was given to us by the county. They have Ms. Thorpe may have to go into specifics where the actual money comes from, but it's a specific county fund that's used for this.
I just know in Woodfin that we had a huge donation from the Reynolds Mountain.
That one is a
homeowners.
braided funding source. We were able to use some of the funds from their Woodfin community donations, and we
Okay.
also used some of the funds from the county community impact to complete that project. So these are supplemental funds
Okay.
that the county sets aside that's not part of the educational line, that they wanted to help address capital needs that improved the community environment, and the community was using those.
Okay,
But
thank you.
there was a small piece of the county funds used as well on the Woodfin playground.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Thorpe, am I remembering correctly that county funding that you're speaking of is actually what was used to add playgrounds to Kuntz intermediate?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
This started about 5 years ago, I think, and so we've been using it each year mostly to do playgrounds.
Yeah, I remember the county commissioners, that was something that was near and dear to the heart, so that's what I was thinking, that's where that money was from.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or comments? We went through that pretty quick, but I know y'all have heard this and talked about it for a while, so.
Board members, any questions for?
I have a
What?
few, if that's okay.
Mhm.
The priority one requests, because they're big requests, they're primarily funded with Article 39 money?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the priority one, well, so you have really, this is the 4042 request, what you see in this book. So all of these requests are funded through 4042. The spreadsheets you saw on this slideshow, the priority one and priority two, those are very specific to Article 39. So each year, in preparation for that Article 39 School Capital Fund Commission meeting, we have to provide our request to them. And typically, those projects start out in this budget, the 4042, and as the committee goes through, we decide those are large enough projects. Either they're a new project or they're an ongoing phase project that we are asking for continual money to keep them going.
Okay. And the number that was almost 27 million to maintain our facilities, that, you're saying that money would come from the 4042 fund or from our overall budget?
It could be a combination of both Article 39 and/or 4042.
Okay. And then, when is W.D. Williams, as of now, scheduled to be complete? The renovations?
If
If there were no changes to Article 39?
there are no changes, we should be finished by the start of school year 27 school year.
Okay. But changes to Article 39 would hamper that
It will hamper
in a
that
major way, is that correct?
dramatically.
Okay. And then one more. When the team is deciding which things to fund, could you just talk about the process of how they decide at a school how you're going to fund a boiler as opposed to a sound system? I mean, what kind of thinking goes through with the Capital Outlay Committee?
So the Capital Outlay Committee, if you've never been involved in those meetings, it's a good meeting to come see, because we really take the time to go through these, all of these requests line by line. Prior to getting this book organized, we sit down with our teams and, we analyze our data from our work order system, how many times have we worked on a piece of equipment, what's the life, or how old is the piece of equipment, and in that way, we have our priority of equipment replacements and/or needs prior to coming into the meeting. When we sit down and talk with the school staff that are on the committee, it's interesting how quickly they realize that, we have to be able to heat our buildings. We have to be able to keep our buildings dry. The roofs have to be operational. We have to be able to have our intercom systems. So it's real quick in these meetings that people realize we don't have enough money to do everything. And I think this year was the first time in my career that I think only one school request got funded. I think it was all facilities and maintenance and technology items to keep the buildings operational. And even the one school request was really a facilities type request that got funded. So it really brings to light right quick like what the needs are in our system.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Questions from other board members?
Of course.
Ms. Clemens?
So just to speak to the Article 39, at this point, we're unclear whether we will have Article 39 dollars.
That's correct.
With the bill that's in the House now. So our Article 39 just to be clear, and Rob, you can speak to it if you'd like, but right now there's a bill in place in the House. It's been approved by the Senate that these dollars could be used differently than the facility priorities that it has been for many years when the bill was adopted in the 70s, I think. So right now, we're waiting to hear about that. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
Yeah. So this could certainly change drastically based on what happens with that bill.
It could, and from my perspective, just being selfish from a facilities and maintenance director, I've said this in several public meetings. I've been very fortunate in my career, even as I've worked my way up and worked with other directors. I don't recall in the last 28 years of ever having to call a superintendent and say, look, we're going to have to shut this building down for a while because of X, Y, or Z.
Okay,
You know, we've
good.
been able to, it may have some issues for a day or two, but, you know, deferred maintenance, I think it's that thing, people ask you what keeps you up at night. It's those things that shut down that you can't fix in a few minutes. So if we ignore things like roofs or major infrastructure items, it could get our system on the news pretty quick sometime when
Oh, I'm sure
when
it
something
could.
has to be shut down for whatever reason, and we
Right.
have to make some tough decisions on how to relocate those children, because we're going to keep teaching children every day somehow,
That's right.
some way. But that's our job. But right now we've been super fortunate to be able to do that where they normally go, and I hope we're able to do that. But with the potential decrease in funding, it could get difficult.
Right, for us to get hardly any of these priorities done at this point.
For sure.
Yeah,
And they're not going away, nor are they getting any cheaper.
that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clements. Mr. Martin?
So Clark, let's break it down for the community to understand. Because as Dr. Jackson said earlier about maintenance, and I need people to really, really understand what maintenance is. All of us bought a house. We built that house. We're going to live in that house for a long period of time. You put a roof on your house. You bought you a 25-year shingle, but me working on home build 21 years, we always tell customers, does not mean it's going to last 25 years. The life expectancy of a shingle probably lasts 20 years. Now let's move over to the commercial side. And I know once people hear this report, they're going to say, well, they think about building a new school, Glen Arden. I've been to Glen Arden, visited, walked around all of it. Needs to be torn down and start over and save money. What's the difference between the cost of what they said to remodel and to rebuild? Is it about $2 to $3 million?
It was. It's about $2 to $3 million difference, and that was several years ago. That cost is probably closer together now, because what we've determined with trying to phase projects and these contractors, it's really hard in today's world to go into the different levels of contracting and actual going into contract to do a portion of work where you really don't know, are you going to get to do another phase? So I think the numbers would be closer, if not even cheaper, to rebuild Glen Arden. And Glen Arden, like you say, it needs some major work done on it, or rebuilt.
And let's all build upon that. The infrastructure of the air conditioning system over there is a lot. It's a lot of yardage inside of an air conditioning unit going inside of a building. Maintaining, guys, we say that in the home improvement industry that your air conditioning unit will last approximately 10 years. That's the expectation that we want that unit to survive. It can last 20 years if you maintenance. Maintenance says 2 times a year you should be getting that unit serviced and looked at, oiled and cleaned out. And a lot of people don't do that, but your department is making sure that these units are done. To replace the air conditioning unit, which is struggling right now in Glen Arden, how much would that cost us?
Oh, and I think there's 20 rooftop units on Glen Arden. Don't quote me on that, but they're $70,000 a piece.
So to redo that whole entire building probably costs between $15, $20 million?
Yeah.
So why would we put a $15 million unit inside of a building that is aged out?
And to brag on our team, going back to that photo at W.D. Williams, those HVAC equipment sitting there, those are 1996 models. So I think that shows how well we maintain what we have, that it's still operational. And today's time, engineers are getting really good at designing items that fail in a certain amount of time. And there's two ways to force you to change and to put new in. Is one, you can't get parts for it anymore. They stop providing parts, and that's anything from the car you drive to the air conditioner at your house, or a component. For example, in air conditioning, the refrigerant that you use, they will price it out of. It doesn't make financial sense to use the refrigerant should you ever have a problem. It makes more sense to. You probably experienced it at your own home. If you have an old R22 system or a 134A system, it's those refrigerants are getting super expensive now.
Yep. So I would tell the public to understand this, that maintenance is very important for our school system. I'll probably say it's probably the highest expenditure on our accounting table, to say this is the most important thing that we have to keep going. And what I do understand about maintenance is that you can get life more out of it if you take care of it. And if Article 39 is disrupted because people don't understand what maintenance is for us, being the largest employer in the entire county. And also, I would say this, I said this yesterday to a person, that we probably are the largest company that has more square footage of brick and mortar than Asheville City and Buncombe County itself. So take that massively when you look at bigger corporations that got buildings all over the place, and most of their capital is spent on maintenance. So call your senators and your House representatives and tell them to block that deal.
Mr. Martin, any other comments or questions from the board?
I don't have a question, but I would like to say and reiterate what so many have already said, that I appreciate so much Mr. Clark and Ms. Thorpe and your teams and members, all the committees who have shared and put in so much time and effort. This has been incredibly eye-opening, and I'm hoping that members of our community and our parents will listen and take heed and know how solidly that we respect and value every piece and detail that has been added to these records and documents and all the data that's been presented, because it's all valuable and we need to pay close attention. So thank you so very much. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Any further questions or comments?
Can we do this?
What's
Can
that?
we give them a hand clap of praise?
Oh, sure. Mr. White, I just had one more question,
Okay.
if you don't mind. So the revenues that we have for capital come from 4042, Article 39, and then you've got the lottery listed here as well. That's something that in my time on this board, I haven't seen a lottery-funded project.
So you will. The lottery fund, they have to be approved by this board. Ms. Thorpe and I were talking this week. Typically, you would see those at this meeting.
Right.
If we have some projects that we want to fund, and Ms. Thorpe, interrupt me if I'm saying something. We're waiting to see what happens with 39 before we bring any of those to you, because we may have to make some different decisions with that money that we have in lottery, and fund different things that we typically don't fund with that.
Are there, I see the kind of the restrictions on it, but is it, I mean, I presume it's not, like, you got 115 school systems in the state. There's a fixed amount of money in
I think we get about
lottery
$350,000 a quarter, something like that.
It's based on the ticket sales within Buncombe County and a very small percentage that comes from other lottery items in the state, but it's based on our ticket sales, and it's around 300, 350 a quarter, 300,000 a quarter that we receive. And we try to really maintain and watch those. You actually did approve a lottery last year at this time.
Okay.
We had them included in our presentation.
So if I heard you right, there's roughly $1.2 million a year of money that comes to Buncombe County schools from the lottery process.
It's definitely
that
not
we,
astronomical amount.
was that?
It's definitely not an astronomical amount.
Yeah, compared to
Yeah.
the magnitude of what we're talking, of everything else we're talking about,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And so that if we, I mean, that's a common misconception is folks will look at different monies they think are available for like either school capital or school operating budgets, and they'll say, well, why can't you just go use that over there? You know, and the lottery has always been something that's on people's mind because you see ads about it. You have to wait in the line at the gas station for 5 people to play the lottery before you can even check out and buy a Snickers bar. So it's like it's there, it's present in everybody's life, but everybody, I don't think quite understands that it, compared to the magnitude of need that we have, $1 million a year from lottery money sounds like a lot, but when you've got to maintain school buildings like this, it's just not.
No, it's not much money.
We certainly appreciate all of it, but we can't just take like an item off of your priority 1 list. I mean, and that was one of the next question was like, if there's something on this priority 1 list that would normally go to Article 39. So for example, I mean, there's a couple in here that are less than $1 million. Not many, but a couple. I mean, even that, we would have to take it off of the priority 1 list here for Article 39. And then we have to go through a separate approval process that would go back through us, the commissioners, and then DPI.
Correct.
So you're looking at potentially like at least another year, maybe. Is there a schedule for that approval? Like, what would the delay
That
be?
typically takes, I would say, 3 months at the quickest. I mean, that's the quickest
Okay.
turnaround to get 3 months. And, you know, a lot of times we use that money for paving.
Okay.
Because it's, but this year we're holding off to wait and see, you know, if we do need to go to some of these priorities that may or may not get funded through the Article 39 process and make some decisions. And we would bring those back to you at one of the June meetings, maybe the first June meeting or the last meeting of the year.
And, okay, thank you for that. And then lastly, if there were items on the priority 1 request, is there anything that would, because that's Article 39, the basic requirement I understood from that was it had to be greater than $100,000 in cost.
Correct.
Is there anything that would preclude those projects from moving over to the 4042 list?
No, they could be funded from 4042 as well.
Okay. It just would rearrange all of the priorities.
Oh, it would change the whole, the thing that we've
The whole
worked months on
calculus.
and the whole committee's decided on.
Yeah. So the Article 39 legislation really causes us to reprioritize the entire capital need list.
Well, and
It's not just some finite number of projects. It actually, because some of the projects on the Article 39 list, the Priority 1 list, truly are of the highest priority. And so,
And going back to this book that you have with you, if you go through it and look and see what's funded or what's proposed to be funded after y'all's approval, you're going to see more roofs, you're going to see more heating and cooling systems, you're going to see more electrical and plumbing systems. You're not going to see anything in there that's been approved that's not an infrastructure. That's what's there.
and my last question is around, when you do expend capital to, say, replace an HVAC system or lighting systems, what thought do you put into, any improved energy efficiencies that may reduce our utility costs on the operational side?
So each, talking about leveraging funding, there's also, we work with Duke Energy in their rebate program. So we do that continuously, and I'm proud to say, and this, don't quote me on this number, but it's well over $3 million over since, 2015, I think, 16, when they started this, that we've worked with Duke Energy and received in rebates for energy efficiency projects. So we always look at that. If it's something down to a small compressor that operates a cooler, a freezer cooler, we apply for that rebate. It may be $50, but we will apply for that and get that money back. So we're always looking at that. The only time that we don't try to maximize efficiency is if it is such a long lead time to get that particular piece of equipment and we have to have it, sometimes we have to do what we have to do. But anytime we can look at the most efficient item and get the maximum amount of money out of it, that's what we do.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And lastly, I'll leave you with a compliment and somewhat of a funny story on your perimeter security work. I think it was a year ago, and I was going to Hall Creek to meet up for the ride the bus to school week, and I had instruction. I think I mixed up instructions. I do that a lot, and I went to the wrong side of the school, and it was early. It was like sun's not up, and there's nobody there yet. I was trying to be Johnny on the spot, and I didn't realize I was on the wrong side of the school. But I was waiting and watching my watch, and all of a sudden the clock ticked over. I was like, I'm supposed to be getting on a bus right now, and I'm not getting on a bus. It must be on the other side of that school. And I tried my hardest to get through that school property over to the other side where the bus was actually at. And I could not, for the life of me, get over there because of the way you've secured the perimeter of that school now. You can't just walk through breezeways to get anywhere you want to on that property. And so you built a better mousetrap, that's for sure. You caught me anyway.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it works.
Good,
it all
good.
works really well. So I appreciate everything and your time in the presentation. So any last comments from the board? Okay.
So you saying you're not smarter than fifth grade?
Correct. I am not. Don't claim. You'd have to go down to kindergarten maybe to get there. Okay. Well, thank you all. Dr. Jackson, any final comments for the board?
No, our last item is our facilities report.
Yes. Thank you for that. And on to that facilities report. We have Ms. Thorpe back with us.
Good afternoon once again. I do want to say a special thank you to my finance team, and they've worked endlessly on all these numbers and the presentations, and one behind the scene that never says a word is Miss Amanda Buckner, who helped tremendously with this facility report, and so I want to make sure that she's recognized too, along with my team here. They have just worked endless hours. So let's begin talking about this facilities report. We do the facility study every year. This study has been done for over 20 years, and we have all the history of it back for the 20 plus years. And so let me talk about the in-depth look that we take as we start this every year. It's another lengthy process similar to the capital outlay process we do. We start digging in at the economic factors and the demographics within Buncombe County, within the North Carolina state, and within the United States. What are trends? What things are happening? We look at birth rates, death rates, migration, immigration, the infrastructure, roads, technology, industries, housing. We look at commercial industries. We look at unemployment rates. We look at the population and all the changes that are taking place. And what I'd like to begin with, as we always do, we will be looking at the permits. We start by digging in and looking at all the permits in Buncombe County. We separate out the commercial permits and take a look at where industry went in. And so in July of 2024, Pratt & Whitney went in the location of near the Robertson District. You can see that I'm going to show you how it connects to all of this. And in the North Buncombe area, the Advent Hospital was approved, and then it got additional beds approved. So I'm going to talk about how all this industry is also impacting our residential building permits. And these residential building permits are based on the permit itself count. You'll see the count in here, but what I want to point out is, so a permit itself could be a single resident or a multi-resident that adds up. So what we've done is I've given you 3 examples, and in the back, in the appendix, you can see the summary for all the whole county. But I want to show you The North Buncombe area, if you're driving out through there, you can see what's happening. Multi-residence, apartment units, all these units were put up. And I want to make sure you're clear, this is a calendar year. We pull it each calendar year, and this is looking at the permits from January 1st of 24 through December 31st, 24. So in the North Buncombe district, there were 432 permits that were issued, but that equates to 588 units, like residential units that families live in. So this included 5 multifamily residents that totaled 156 units, which are in the Weaverville primary elementary attendance area. So we take a look in what schools they'll be attending, where it's feeding in the pipeline to our schools and our facility usage, and we're going to get to that in a minute. And also, the Inca district, there were 278 permits, 431 units is what that equates to, because there was one multifamily resident that had 153 units in that, which will be attending the Sandhill Venable attendance area. Next, which is huge, which is near the Pratt and Whitney section and Avery's Creek, T.C. Robertson District had 263 permits issued in residential, which equated to 1,186 units, including 29 multifamily residents totaling 932 units, which are in that Avery's Creek attendance area. We usually get about 66%, you're going to see that, of all births and the population of what's attending Buncombe County schools. So we've got that built in, how much is actually attending Buncombe County schools and what areas, if they're attending private, charter, all of that's built into this. So those are 3 major districts that are getting significantly impacted, and the population is going to change. It's the industry around, the economic factors are driving this. And the other main things you can also tell, it's where the main thoroughways are, I-26 and I-40. There's these multifamily units and around these areas that are going up to meet the needs of the industry that we have put in Buncombe County. That is a great way to grow the area. I want to talk about this as an example of how we have done this for years. You can see our example goes back to 1997. These are actual numbers. How we do our methodology and our projection of our membership and how we move cohorts. And we also do it based on percentages of what is the average amount that we hold them within Buncombe County or they leave us. So we work out all of these percentages. There's lots of data behind this that produces this sheet. So we are using the most recent 6-year average in these numbers. So we are using that number in all of these projections. It seemed very accurate over time. You can look at that to use that percentage. This is our actual membership projection versus our capacity. If you start with the very far left column, but once you get past the district and the type of school it is, there's our 24-25 current best 1 of 2, which is our 22,052 students. I'm sorry this is hard to see, but if you've got your book in front of you, we'll go through this. It's very important to understand what we're seeing here. So we go through all of this data that's producing this projection from all of the schools, along with all the permits, along with our birth rates and our death rates, and everything's built in to move our projections along with what our retainage will be. So looking over the 5 years, 25, 26 to 29, 30 year, these are our projections from the facility side and analyzing it in depth. What you will see is in that next, the functional capacity. Let's talk about the different types of capacity, which really matters. DPI has a calculation, a strict number calculation for, it utilizes just a built-in state capacity calculator and never looks, that calculator never looks at the function, what the purpose of the use of that particular area is for. It's just a strict calculation. It doesn't take in class size average, it doesn't take in rules around spaces. So what we use, and we've always used, is functional capacity. So we send out every year to all the principals their blueprint of their school. They send us back a very detailed, we've got very specific things that we ask them for, and they outline where our EC students are, where our cultural arts, wherever things at. They identify on our blueprint where each class is and what's being taught in those subject areas or what it's being used for, like a multi-purpose room. So we have all of that. That's figured in this. And then we also have the cafeteria and the media center built in based on the capacity that it can handle for each school system, each school. So if you're looking at the functional capacity, it tells you how much that building truly should have. Okay, so if you were at the perfect ideal world. So if you're looking at that column, along with, we look at, we also do not really pay much attention to the theoretical Common Core capacity, because that was a calculation that utilizes all available space for Common Core, also without regards to class size averages or anything like that. So we truly like to stick with the functional capacity because it truly meets the needs of our school system better. And the color codes, you can see that we are within, if it's yellow in the projection from 24-25 to 29-30, we're within 25 of capacity account, which is, it could be either way, below or increase or above. So then we're looking at, if it's greater than 25 beyond capacity, it's orange. And then if it's red, it's beyond 50 or more in capacity. So we do have some schools, especially based on where I just pointed out where all this growth is going to happen. We've got some areas that we're going to have to pay really close attention to coming up. Estes, North Buncombe Elementary, and the North Buncombe End, Weaverville Elementary, Primary, because you can already see they're in the red, and West Buncombe is in the red, and also Oakley. So we've got to really be paying attention to where all those permits, where the residential homes are being built, and what's going to happen to our capacity within those schools. So we are pointing out and watching this every year for over 20 years. We've been keeping an eye on this, and this is when we had to build the intermediates, when we had growth. We were using our functional capacity and our utilization rates and looking at all the demographics and economic factors around us that was going to impact our school system.
Tina,
Yes.
can we express that we are not at capacity right now so we can calm some parents down in T.C. Robinson's area? That we are aware of what's going on, we are aware of the building that's happening around us, but right now, we are okay inside of our rooms right now?
We are, and it clearly shows that on the T.C. Robertson chart. We're within room that we can take this capacity. That's, I'm hoping, will return our ADM into some of these buildings that, like that.
Would that statement include Estes, just to make sure, just as a case study for me to make sure I'm
Estes
looking
has
at
got
this
to be
right?
addressed.
Okay.
We know that. We've had it on our capital list. It drove a decision. We've had to phase it. The cost came back higher than, and Clark can speak to this, we had a design done, and then we have been able to phase it. We've done the EC portion, and there was 3 additional classrooms that need to be built there, and those were already in the process of being designed with just a schematic, and so we need to move forward.
So we have a plan in place is what
We
is
do.
going on with this, Stacy.
That's, I mean, we go into great lengths looking at every kind of angle, thinking about all of the components that make up our school system,
It just
especially.
seems like unfortunately in that area, it's experiencing such a growth that you build it and then, I guess it's that saying, build it and more come, and then you build it.
That happens especially when you're driving the industry, which I'm very thankful, that the economy's turning around, and the North Carolina Department of Commerce is projecting that our March unemployment rates are going to be back down, very similar to state average of 3.7 or 4% around this time every year. So that'll be a significant turnaround, because we were at 6.8 in January and 6.2 in February, but they're projecting right around 4% unemployment. So yes, we have a lot of industry and growth around these schools. Okay, this is just a quick snapshot that just breaks it down by school for you. The difference between our best one of 2 from this year was 22,052, and last year was 22,066. So the difference is in the far right-hand column by school where the change took place, and the net, as I stated earlier, we lost 14 students overall between the 2 years. Pay close attention to this slide versus the next slide. We are comparing Buncombe County schools, public schools, along with the state schools, state public schools, and you can see where we were with our top population in 2012-13, and then the onset of the charter schools that removed students from public schools, and then the pandemic that happened. And then we, though, are following right along. If you look at the next slide, very similar to what happened across North Carolina State as well. So they also have been trying to manage trends, and that goes back to that planning allotment, realizing that they were going to have to make adjustments because the trends have changed. Oops. I put in some more information and we've cited everything where we got this information from. Trends in North Carolina Public School ADM, what's happening across the whole state year over year from 2013 and through 22 here, and you can see on our other slides it had continued to change. The other note is private and homeschools data is self-reported, so that's just another factor that needs to be kept in mind. And the next pie chart shows significantly one part that does not need to be overlooked is the homeschool. The homeschool numbers have grown astronomically, and North Carolina's requirements around homeschools are very, very different than what a public school has, and so keep that in mind as you're thinking about where our population is going. I like the line chart here where it shows the breakdown of the charter, private school, and homeschools. And it was understandable in 2020 that homeschools grew like that due to the fact the pandemic hitting and parents not knowing what to do, but it has still continued to shrink back just a little bit, but we're still not back to the level prior to the pandemic in total that has been self-reporting as being homeschooled. Now, what I don't want to overlook is these private schools. The law that was just passed last year and millions more dumped into billions to the Opportunity Scholarship is the private schools that will be definitely impacting public school dollars and is yet to fully be understood of how that's going to impact us. But that number has been changing and will continue to change as those opportunity scholarships were approved. I have some more data on those in the back of the book as well. I just found this very interesting off of a reliable source, and you can see what has happened across the United States to public school enrollment between the fall of 2019 and the fall of 2023. And it's devastating to think about what's going to happen overall to the economy, because public schools really support the economy. So to determine, a few years down the road how this is going to impact us as the United States. Overall trends, again, this is the estimated school age, resident population, and enrollment from 2012 to 2022 for North Carolina. And then here's a look at the changing market share. This one really highlights what happened to districts are us, and then charter, private, and homeschool. So just different ways of looking at it, plus a lot of different analyses have been done trying to figure out the trends and also the impact to the economy plus the impact to education. These are our student transfer destinations, and in the back of the appendix, there's a lot more details around this, but in 2023-24, we released, they transferred out, we didn't release them. They transferred 130 to private schools, which goes back to reiterate how the Opportunity Scholarship is going to impact us. 24-25, the highest one was 113 for private schools. So we can't take those off the radar as well. Last year when I presented this, last year was the first year that our trends did not look as they had always looked, but back to this year, it's almost identical the way it had been for many years. We see transfers out. In the past, we had seen transfers out at the 5th and 6th grade level, and then again at 9th grade. So when they were changing buildings or changing the level, they were opting to transfer out. And last year was a bizarre year that did not align with history or trends. This year, it's very similar to the way it had been for many years. And here's a breakdown of how that looks by student transfers, their destinations by grade level. So I think this is a very informative chart that shows what's happening.
We're looking at a lot of transfers in the 5th and 6th grade, right? And that's that intermediate.
Yes.
And then, of course, 9th grade is when
High
kids
school.
decide, I want to go to this school or that school. Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's what that means. We included the state budget cap and the rules and what happened around charter here so that you had links that if you wanted to look at those, the fast facts around that. And then the voucher information, we've updated it along with links so that you can study out. School vouchers are really a method of diverting our educational dollars from public school to subsidize tuition at private schools. And number one, it is the state's largest voucher program. It transfers tuition funds in an amount up to 100% of the average state per pupil. It was last year, 23-24, the state pupil was $6,492 per student directly to the private schools. And then just included a little more legal history around our North Carolina voucher program for you all to read and understand. And some more details around the amount that has increased for our vouchers, and you can see what has happened with the legislation that passed.
So Tina, with this, the funds that we transfer is for private and charter?
This one's private.
Just private? Do we transfer money out for homeschool?
No, not homeschool, but private and charters take off the state dollars. And so 4.9 billion in total opportunity scholarship voucher dollars. That's what it will be in 2032-33, based on the current law.
And how much money are we gonna transfer out?
I don't know that number. It was estimated that it was going to impact us by $5 million for the first coming year, which I don't know if that's going to be for real yet or not, but it appears that it will impact us.
And Tina, excuse me, just to be clear, those funds can be applied for by folks who already have students in private school.
Yes,
And the proportionate sort of family of four salary information there, annual family income.
yes.
So even above $100,000 a year, you can still effectively get 60%, access to 60% of that ADM allotment.
That is correct. That's the chart you're looking at. It shows if you're at 55,500 or below, a family of four, you get 100%. If you're between 55.5 and 111,000, you can get 90% of the state allocation for that $6,000 plus per student. And then if you're making an income of 111 to 250, well, 249,750, you can get 60%. And then if you were making above 250 really and above, you can still get 45% of that, which is drastically different than what it used to be. The law changed this.
Have you seen any data by chance around private schools just adjusting their tuition upward to just basically account or
I have not researched
to take
that.
advantage of?
I understand what you're saying. I have not
Yeah.
completed the research on
I
that.
didn't know if you'd heard any numbers of it.
And does this include private virtual schools?
Excuse me.
Private virtual?
Yes, anything considered a private. So here's a very good snapshot. So here's the total recipients in 24-25 that 42% of the Opportunity Scholarship recipients statewide were in the two highest income tiers, coming from families making over $115,000 annually in a family of four. So if you hover over this map, and there's a link there if you want to, all the data's there, plus you can hover over it and click on Buncombe County and see the breakdown by county. So I tried to provide you all kinds of information if you wanted to dig into those as well, because I think it's very important to address at the state level what it's going to do to public schools.
Tina, is there a spot where they list the range of the amount of the vouchers? I believe that they ranged from 3,500 to about just over 10,000 for the individual voucher.
No, they're paying up to the state amount of 6,000, whatever the state per pupil ends up being, that they will cover. So if they get 100%, and this year it's right at 7,000 for the state amount.
And those would be given to the people with the lower incomes?
Yes.
Would get the 7,000. A
Yeah.
person making $1 million may only get
45%, up to 45%
which is
of that.
significantly less than any private school that I've ever heard of cost. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then here's Buncombe County. After you click on it, Tier 1 was 31%, Tier 2, 28%, Tier 3, 24%, and Tier 4, 16%, a total of 1,979 scholarship recipients. 40% were in the highest income tiers in Buncombe County that received those. And then the voucher floodgates opened to the wealthy families, and the wealthy families rushed in, and you can see all that broken down here. And the site was, all the sites have been, the citations are there for where we got the material. Okay.
So, looking at this chart, applicants by tier, 2024, 2025. So if I'm in tier 1, percentage applicants 19%, applicant by tier is 13,680.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am making over $250,000 a year, I'm at 12,960. So is this,
That's the
Robert-
total applicants estimated that participated.
that came into the system?
Mm-hmm.
And the money I'm gonna pay out, I'll just go ahead and say it, this is highway robbery. If you're making $250,000 and you can afford to send your child to private school, you don't need no money from the public school system.
Okay. So this is a chart showing you the change in student enrollment and the participating private schools and what has happened over time. And then there's a breakdown of the dollar amount of the value of the scholarships that were dispersed, the participating private schools that received it, the student enrollment, and the maximum scholarship value. And remember, that scholarship value changes each time, each year based on the state per pupil expenditures. And House Bill 10, which did pass, well, the veto got overridden, so.
Tina, is there a spot where we see the dollar amount for the 24, 25? I see the number of recipients.
No, because that will come out when we end school year 25. It's averaging a little over $7,000 per pupil. So it should reflect around 7,000 as the 100%, if you were to get the full 100% per student.
It's still averaging 7,000, even though the majority of the people applying are some of the wealthiest citizens.
Not averaging, that, the max, if you're in the lowest tier, the
Okay.
per pupil amount, total amount you can get is, it will be probably $7,100, right around $7,100 if you got 100% of the voucher covered for the state amount. I don't know the averages for 24, 25.
Okay. Do you know of the 540 million that was put into the pot for this year, does the money that's not used just carries over? Is that correct?
It stays in there.
And is added to the next year's 540 million? Okay.
It should be based on what how the legislation was written.
Okay.
Here's the virtual charter schools, 10-year ADM. And you can see I added the Pine Springs to it. This is North Carolina Cyber that we talked about, and North Carolina Virtual Academy, along with our Pine Springs Preparatory Academy. These are the numbers from the whole state, or wherever they're attending from. This is their population that they have. And you can see in pandemic, when 1920 hit, that the Cyber Academy dropped off, but it has picked back up, but kind of holding flat compared to the North Carolina Virtual Academy has continued basically to rise mostly, except for a couple of years there. And then now we have the Pine Springs that's impacting us locally, that we're sending local dollars to another county for students that live here but are attending virtually Pine Springs. Here's the virtual charter schools per pupil rate paid by BCS that we had to send out. And you can see in 2023, I kept that old rate in there so you could see what happened. The two North Carolina ones, we were capped at $790 per student. Then it went to our average rate. So those are the dollars that have been sent to those virtual academies from our local dollars. And 2025 is not complete yet. That's through March.
So maybe, Dr. Jackson, you probably answer this question. For the virtual schools, do our parents know that we offer a virtual academy?
Thank you for the question. We do our very best to tell the story of our virtual academy, and we've seen a growth in our enrollment in our virtual academy as well. In terms of, we try our very best to tell the story of our virtual academy, and one of the pieces to that story is actually the academic achievement of students in these virtual charters, which is available in terms of school performance grades, and then the school performance grade for our Buncombe County Schools Virtual Academy. And so certainly there's a vast difference in student outcomes measured by the state with the virtual charter schools compared to our Buncombe County Schools Virtual Charter School. But we do our best to tell that story, and of course we'll continue to do that work.
Because I know when I looked at their scores, our virtual academy actually is performing very, very well. And I would stress to any parent that is sending children to Cyber, Virtual, or Pine, and homeschool parents to take a tour of our virtual academy.
Okay.
Got one quick question about virtuals. Is there a cap on enrollment? Like in K through 3, we have a class size restriction, right? Is there such a thing or equivalent of that in a virtual academy setting?
There is for us, but not in the state. So with public school units, they put a cap on the number of students that we can put in hours, but not at the state level.
For the charter programs.
Correct.
Interesting. So theoretically, you could, I mean, because there's no physical boundaries anywhere, you could have 1 million students in that charter academy. It wouldn't really matter. I mean, but is it per instructor? Are there any limitations around that? Just curious.
No.
Like, you could have literally one instructor with like 500 students, you know, on a screen.
Yes, that is a true statement. And I know people who have taught personally, and they've had 45, 50 in their class at like a local university here. But that's the same thing there. They can put as many as they want. There's not a restriction around it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think like the demographics in North Carolina, like it's a very fast-growing state. I think it's like it's in the top 10, I think, in the country for population growth in general. And so when I think about school buildings and facilities and capacities and all these things, sure, there could be some unused capacity in some of our school buildings, but at the rate that our state, and especially Buncombe County, is projected to grow over time, you know, you would think that as many different options and choices as are being legislated into the education system. So you got charters, virtual charters, private school vouchers now. At some point, there's still some physical capacity that cannot absorb all of the growth that's occurring in the state of North Carolina. And so it's bound to come back. That's just me thinking through it all, but this virtual is different. That's a different thing when you can have that many pupils per instructor, for sure.
Right. So we're going to dive into the long-range planning, which is an extension, just a little bit of an extension of what Clark just went through. The first 3 slides are exactly what you've already seen, so I'm going to go quickly on through those because I wanted to show you the depth of what a planning study and assessment looks like. So there's the priority 1s that we submitted. And on this, you can see it a little better. This is through number 22 through 59, and then number 60 through 98 that we were able to put on here so you can see it a little better. We did a roofing study. An outside party did a roofing study a few years back, 2 years ago or 3. And just to give you an example, a relative roof condition rating, this is the rating from 0 to 10. You've got 0 to 5 years left, it's considered very poor. 11 to 30 rating is 5 to 8 years, but poor, and so on. The next slide produces the study results from RCI that were considered very poor that we've been trying to, we've got them in our list. This is called long-range planning. So we get third parties to look at this. We get our teams together, everybody's looking at this and deciding the priority and how to get these accomplished to make sure our facilities are well maintained and kept up. And then this is an older cost now that this is about 3 years old. But that was the cost at the time that the study was done. So we always put numbers with it, and then we go back and revisit what it's going to cost to really get this work done. And then as Clark was saying, here's when we did the advanced study planning on Glen Arden. It was November 2020. And this was, you know, concept renovation and addition if we did it that way. A new construction, so went into great length with the architect, just showing you a breakdown. And then W.D. Williams advanced planning was done in April of 21, and as you can see, what Clark said was very true. We had intentions of Glen Arden happening before W.D., but then once we did this advanced planning study, that's when it come back, oh, you cannot let this go, we got to get this fixed. So that was the conceptual design that was done at the time, and we've moved through that. We're in phases, and trying to plan, and we do this with everything. So this was just a small example of what all we look at. That's the end of the actual facility needs and the enrollment summaries, but the appendix is full of valuable information for you all, talking about different trends by different districts, talking about the population of Buncombe County. Just glancing through, though, if there's anything you want to talk about, Asheville City and charter school membership, how that's changed over time, and the transfers out of Buncombe County, where they happened, all of that's in there. And the transfers into Buncombe County, where they came from's in there. The mid-year graduation data's in there, because we take that into consideration when we're looking at facilities. The gain and loss over the last 10 years between us and Asheville City matters, because that's the percentage. It always divides out the money, the allotments, based on percentages of who's losing the most students or who's gaining the most students. There's the population growth in Buncombe County just since 2014, and that's what Mr. Elliott was referring to, the growth of what's happening in Buncombe County. Here's Asheville population in detail. And here's an historical population link chart if you want to dig in deeper. And the U.S. Census population, we look at all that and the methodology around that. We also break down the historical projected kindergarten membership compared to births, and we have experienced 66% of all births do attend Buncombe County schools since we've been tracking the data from 2012 to this year and looking out at the projected birth rates. Here's another deeper dive into the total BCS, Asheville City, and charter schools kindergarten membership compared to births that attend which schools. Here's the entire state of North Carolina, the 24-25 charter school detail, and it's county by county, and city school numbers are combined in our county, so don't forget that. This is by county. Here's another chart that Mr. Elliott was talking about, the 5-year ADM by county. So this one is the one that breaks it down in detail around the permits by district, by schools. So we dive into where those permits are going to be impacting which schools. And we do it every year. You can go back and pull all of these to see as we're tracking. So as you can see, the building permit trends, you can tell by category, by district. These are by district. The North Buncombe's the orange that's grown off the chart this year, and we see it happening. I live that way and I drive by it every day. And then also you can see what happened in 20, 21, 22 in Reynolds and Inca and Robertson at the growth that the permits, where the permits happened and the growth that happened around the residential type. Here's the county's development mapper. We always use it to pull the data straight from there. Major subdivisions, minor subdivisions, what that means. So a major subdivision is land which result in 11 or more total lots upon completion, and a minor subdivision is where a subdivision creates 4 to 10 lots upon completion. So, development's happening. Major subdivisions with impact to Buncombe County Schools, we've listed those out. Proposed number of lots that are happening in those permits and the subdivisions. And we've listed the school that's going to be impacted. Very informative slide. Here in 2024 were the new major subdivisions listed out. And how many proposed number of lots are going to be in there. Lots and lots of information in this. So, do you all have any questions?
Any questions from the board? Other comments? Well, Tina, Ms. Thorpe, thank you so much for all the information. It is incredibly informative and I think gives us a lot to think about over the next week. Dr. Jackson? Any closing comments from yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. There was certainly a lot of information to take in. Appreciate again all of the staff work to prepare for today and appreciate the work of the board to consider all that needs to be considered as we try to serve our students and staff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again to our staff. Thank you again to all you board members for your time. Our next board meeting will be next Thursday, May the 1st. That's right. 5:30 right here. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is adjourned. Thank you.